Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, Ryan Nielsen said something that may or may not have us concerned.
And you know what? We may be concerned, but what does Dr. Rush say about what Ryan Nielsen says about attacking?
And last but not least, and for the culture, do we really need remakes? We're talking about all that right now on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
First, I want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate you for that. We are trying to stay 100% on 5-star reviews. No negativity right here on ATL Day Ones. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on today to get started. But T, we're getting started with Ryan Nielsen. He has an introductory press conference for the Atlanta Falcons on yesterday out at Flowery Branch. And T, I think I heard attack like 1,000 times. and then, I heard the word multiple. Like those were the buzzwords for the day. But when you think about that multiple piece, right? There's a thing that comes to mind, like when you talk about like mindset versus going into the draft. Like you were looking at a specific type of player, and they were looking at a specific type of player last year with a 3-4 in mind.
Yes.
But they're looking at players for a multiple defense in mind. Like, so what does that look like? Are you concerned that there may be the message may get misconstrued as to what they're looking for go ahead into the draft?
No, I don't think so. And the only reason I say that is because I feel like and I'm going to go to Terry Fontenot as well. They have a history of getting guys who have the ability to kind of flex and the ability to move around. And I think, so when you look at some of the success stories that they've had, just kind of as a whole,
right,
you look at what they were able to do with Cam Jordan and David Onyemata. I'll use those two as the example because that's who most people are using as the example.
Indeed.
If you can help those guys evolve their game, I don't see why you can't help others to evolve their game as well. Now, that assumes certain things, right, Jarvis? Number one, that assumes that Grady Jarrett can be the Grady Jarrett that we think he is, which is the guy that has had to flex. He's had to work in both systems, right? And so he has at least been serviceable, if not good to great, in both of those systems. I also think about a guy whom you and I really, really love his game, and I'm hoping that he has the ability to kind of be flexible as well. And that would be an Arnold Ebiketie, because I feel like, and you know better than most because you played the game and you were right there in the trenches, certain guys have the ability and the skill set to be able to do both, whether that's a stand-up or whether that's hand in the dirt. I feel like there are two things. Number one, they've seen those guys in their time together. And number two, because they've seen it and they've seen it be effective, I think they can go out and kind of see guys in the draft that have the ability to do both. But 9 times out of 10, you kind of playing a nickel most of the time anyway. So I think that's probably the most critical piece, like just being able to, get the guys that are going to fit whatever scheme evolves from the nickel. And I think sometimes the Saints even play dime. But anyway, that's, that's where my thought goes as far as their ability and me not being concerned about going from, a 3-4 to a 4-3 and having the players to do it. Other thing is, Jarvis, this, when you and I kind of dig into the commentary, the sound, if you will, from what Nielsen had to say, sounds like he's saying, hey, I'm going to work with what I have, but with the understanding that we'll go out and get whoever fits the philosophy and the strategy that we're putting in place. I like it.
Yeah, like I'm with you on that, because when you think about what this team needs, and from what I'm hearing, Cam Jordan and a couple of other players on not former Saints players, they talk about how he has an aggressive style.
Yes.
He's a guy who can kind of get into you a little bit. And we haven't seen that since Brian Cox. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
like he ran Vic Beasley off. So what I mean? So we haven't seen that in quite some time. So I think when you talking about going from opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like Coach Gary Emanuel may have been a little bit reserved when in my interactions with him, but
Mm-hmm.
so you bring in a guy that has a little bit more to him, like, and
Yes.
I don't mind that because
No.
Nielsen is a guy who has a lot of respect
Mm-hmm.
around, specifically on the college level and in the NFL as well.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since he came in at 2017,
Mm-hmm.
Saints one of the better teams at sacking the quarterback. Hey,
Yeah.
now my only thing is how much is he going to be able to have that, be hands on, and have those relationships like you talked about with Cam Jordan, how
Mm-hmm.
that relationship, it wasn't all peaches and cream, but
Right.
the respect level is there, and that's what all
Yes.
I care about, because that's what a lot of people get misconstrued about coach, player, locker room, and all that stuff. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to like everybody, but you
No.
dang sure better have that respect though. If you
Yeah.
don't have that respect, that's when you have an issue. And I think that when Cam Jordan, the way he speaks about Nielsen, he has that necessary respect that
Mm-hmm.
you look for, or you want to hear former players talk about with coaches. Because when you're trying to figure out, like, okay, who is this guy? What is he about?
Mm-hmm.
You like when you hear guys who have respect, potential Hall of Fame guys, vouch
Right.
for said coach. I think the Falcons may have made the right decision. So my
Yes.
concern level as far as the multiple 3-4, 4-3,
Mm-hmm.
like who can get to the quarterback when it's third and long? I don't
Right.
give a damn. I don't give a
Say it
damn
for
what
the
your
people in the
position
back,
title is.
Jarvis.
Like third and long, who getting home? That's all. That's gonna be our motto on
Oh, I
ATL Day
like it.
Ones.
Third
Third
and
and long,
long. Who's getting
who
on?
getting home?
Yeah.
Who getting home? Right here on ATL Day Ones. But let's talk a little bit of Atlanta Hawks, T, because they
Yeah.
get ready to take on the New Orleans Pelicans tonight. And I think that when you look at how this team has been playing, and
Mm-hmm.
you think about what it is they need to do and be able to order to get a win, I kind of I found myself digging
Mm-hmm.
into stats. I did my little research, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is your guy too. When DeAndre Hunter plays well, specifically when he shoots from three, the Hawks
Yeah.
win, T. They
Win.
win. They win. Like when they went on the 5 games winning streak, I was looking
Mm-hmm.
at the numbers. The dude was like shooting like 45 to 50%
Yeah.
from three, T. Like
Yeah.
the man was lights out with it. And when you think about DeAndre Hunter and what he brings to the table, like
Mm-hmm.
you kind of understand why Travis May paid him that $90 million.
Yeah.
And you look at it from that standpoint, like, okay, when this dude specifically, now
Mm-hmm.
John Collins can go off and the Hawks can lose, but
Right.
when this dude DeAndre Hunter is shooting well,
Gosh,
and
yeah.
he doesn't have to shoot 50% from three, because that's really really good. But
Mm-hmm.
if he's shooting well from the 3-point line, and
Mm-hmm.
you add that on top of what Trey and DeJounte are bringing to the table, and Clint
Right.
Capella and JC just doing what JC needs
What
to
they
do.
do. Mm-hmm.
This is a hard team to beat, T.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's going to be great because Trey Murphy the third, that's the Pell who's at the small forward. At least that's their starting small forward. So when
Right.
you look at a guy like him, and his numbers are actually kind of in that same space as Dre. But what I like is what you just said. Dre's 3-point game is ahead of where Trey Murphy the third's 3-point game is, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes a difference because, hey, number one, that means you're able to outscore the very guy that you're going to be defending. But I think also it gives you some space to be, because you think about the fact that we love to say that Dre is, quite honestly, other than DJ, of course, I'm taking him out of this for a second, but
Mm-hmm.
Dre is your other like two-way player who really, really impacts the game. And it doesn't actually have to be a double-double type impact.
No.
He's the guy who, as long as he disrupts on the wing, the Hawks, that's another reason they win, because
Yep.
like you said, when he is hitting on the wing and when he's disrupting on the wing, they are in very, very good company. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that he could be the biggest factor of the night. But can I just co-sign slightly, because when you don't have a Zion Williamson who's still out dealing with that groin injury, that
Yeah.
should be to your favor as well. Like, you've got to
Yes.
take advantage of the fact that you don't have to worry about him. So that's one less big that you have to worry about. And Jonas Valanciunas, he's listed as probable for tonight along with Brandon Ingram, but there is still some soreness that he's dealing with, right? So that's, to me, that says this. Time to eat, John Collins / Clint Capella, because you guys don't have a lot to bang with in the middle. No disrespect, Herb Jones. No disrespect. But if Jonas Valanciunas is a little bit hobbled and Herb Jones is who you have to contend with, I expect this backcourt to have, I'm sorry, I expect this front court to go ahead and feast. Backcourt's not a problem. Backcourt's been feasting quite fine, but this front court, go ahead and step up. And more than anything, Jarvis, that means 4, give 5 the support that he needs.
Absolutely. And when you think about, I've never been a guy where I feel like you have to run plays for JC
Right.
and Capella. I mean, Capella not so much, but they can get they can get the garbage points and take advantage of the mismatches that you just spoke of, those guys not being in the lineup. I
Right.
do expect for you to go ahead and take the initiative to say, hey, give me the rock and let me go to work. And I think that both of those guys are capable of doing that
Oh, yeah.
when they have those opportunities and when those mismatches come about. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that as the Hawks tip off at 7:30. DeJounte Murray has a migraine, so he's questionable for tonight. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And but I think the Hawks should be in good shape to come out on the road with a 3-2 out of 5 T on the road. As
Yeah.
much as this team struggled early on, yeah, I think the Falcons will be just
Take that.
The Hawks, excuse me, will be just fine. So you'll be just fine if you doggone mess around and go and mess with FanDuel, because guess what? They are the number one sports book in America. How about that? Why would you want to mess with the number one sports book in America? Because guess what? The Super Bowl is right here, and they are our new number one sports book, and they are our sports betting partner. So yeah, we're partners. We're great. They're great. So you need to mess with them if you want to be great and win some money. Here we go. For all the new customers, right? All you need to do is download the app, and you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your bet doesn't win. If your first bet doesn't win, that's key right there. If your first bet doesn't win. So yeah, go. No reason not to go there. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. That's what it's all about. I want my money right now. That's what I'm trying to do. So guess what? Join FanDuel today at fanduel.com/locked on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's fanduel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So the Falcons introduced their new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, yesterday, and he had some interesting things to say. But Jarvis and I aren't going to be the only ones that give reaction to it. Why would we when we can get reactions from Dr. Rush himself? So we have the man, the myth, the legend, and a guy that was definitely disruptive during his days with the Atlanta Falcons, Mr. Chuck Smith. What's happening today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Tenitra? How are you, Jarvis?
Doing good,
Good,
man. Thanks
man.
for rocking with us today, man. Really appreciate
Of
you.
course, man.
Yes.
You're my people, man. I've been rolling with y'all for a long time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, it's so interesting to us because everybody about a week and a half ago or so, Chuck, everybody was pontificating on who the Falcons were going to go with. Oh, they're going to go with this person because they run the same type of base defense, or they're going to go with this person because he has relationships prior with Arthur Smith. And then we all got shocked. And Ryan Nielsen was the guy that they chose. But then we had a conversation with one of our colleagues out of New Orleans. He made some good points about guys that Nielsen has coached up. Cam Jordan, David Onyemata, and then back in their earlier days, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. So first question for you is, do you feel like he can maybe get that next level of production from some of the guys at some of these critical positions for the Falcons? Some of the young bucks like a Taquan Graham and Arnold Ebiketie, Jalen Hawkins, Richie Grant. What are your thoughts on what Nielsen can do?
Well, I think part of the hire, that has to be a big part of it, development, because I've talked about that for quite some time. And what you see is a lack of development when it comes to the guys in the front seven. Things like playing with your pads down, being able to strike with your palms, having developing strength in your hands, and playing basic blocks, reach blocks on the run, double teams, and even talked about the pass rush. Because as much as we talk about the head coach, it's going to come down to a coordinator that empowers and has a defensive line coach that teaches that, because that's where that's going to come from. So I like a lot of what he said about I think he said somewhere sort of where the culture, somebody asked him, about the culture. He said, we're starting from scratch, basically, we're starting new. And to me, that's the big part. It's the development. And you think about Trey Hendrickson, who was there. You talked about Onyemata, some of those guys. It's just vital he comes in. The culture has to start with the development. But with development, you got to have coaches that are current, that understands the climate, especially with pass rush.
Oh,
The
yeah.
moves have evolved. So the coaches have to evolve. And I hope the coach brings that kind of culture, and it starts with development first.
I think I think you make a great point, Chuck. When you think about I know a lot of people have been real big on the formations, right? 4-3 versus 3-4, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and I'm kind of with Coach Smith and Nielsen on the fact that it really doesn't matter, being that you're in nickel about 60% of the time anyway.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I do think that when you think about like Tenitra mentioned Arnold Ebiketie, right? I think he was a guy that they looked at as a 3-4 outside linebacker, right? But talk about that development if you're trying to ask this dude to put his hand in the dirt for 3 downs. Like, isn't that a difference
Yeah.
between from a coaching standpoint?
Well, I think when you look at Arnold and you look at most of the guys that are playing outside backer at some point put their hand in the dirt.
Right.
And a lot of the guys that are standing up were former defensive linemen at some point. A lot of them. But I definitely think I agree with what you're saying about what the coach said about we want to be multiple and things like that. But on third downs, you have to develop a four-man pass rush. You don't have, and when I say this, Jarvis, and I'm not talking about a four-man pass rush with an outside linebacker that's truly not a true pass rush expert or specialist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think Arnold's going to have an issue with putting his hand down. He might stand up, like Cam Jordan. Cam
Mhm.
Jordan is a defensive end that at one time played defensive tackle.
Mhm.
So I do see you can still do it, but I like the fact that what they're saying is they're going to be multiple, but they have to be able to have true components of a four-man rush. If you
Mhm.
look at the teams that are winning, you look at the two teams that are in the Super Bowl, their primary are four-man rushers. If
Mhm.
you look at the team, the best defense in the league was the San Francisco 49ers. They're a base four-man front. So to me, you don't have to go one way or the other, but it's too easy to teach a four-man rush. It's
Yeah.
too easy to put that out there. Now we got to have the players, but I think they got,
Mhm.
like you said, Taquan Graham. He can play the three. He can get time on the
Yeah.
shade next to Grady. So from that standpoint, Arnold Ebiketie, it's going to be vital that he's developed. But it's his time. But again, you know what? See, y'all, I hate when I have to go there because it sometimes takes time for guys to develop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody to come in after the first year and get 10 sacks.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Mhm.
not, you know what I mean? So I think even if Arnold came out this year and was average, there's still a development phase for him. So we all put pressure on him because we know we need that, but
Mhm.
there's such a development phase. But I think
Yeah.
believing in him, but also him taking control of his own career and improving on some of the techniques that he didn't have last year.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm here. There are some things that you said that I wanted to kind of pit stop at as well. So I'm going to kind of reset what I was going to ask. One of the things and also that I thought about with you, we hear this all the time, and this is something that Jarvis and I have said on this show as well. Number one, the Falcons need a dog. They got about one, maybe two good dogs on the defense.
Yeah.
They need that guy. And honestly, Chuck, not since your days, and maybe here and there, I can think of some other guys sprinkled in. Have we really seen those dogs that get after it? Like you said, you think about the Eagles and you think about the fact that from a passing perspective, you're not going to mess with them. But then on Chiefs, on the same token with them, you're not going to get a lot in the run game against them. I don't think anybody has feared the Falcons defense in a month of Sundays. And Grady Jarrett needs help. My phrase has
Yeah.
always been send 97 help. So when you think about those guys, and we are approaching free agency as well as that draft that's creeping up so closely, and I know you have been evaluating players, you've been watching players at those respective bowls, or as I like to call them, the all-star games of college football. Who do you think is that guy or guys that you've seen that will finally give the Falcons what they need and give Grady some help?
Well, that's a tough one because free agency is one of those things. This year, to
Yeah.
me, it's not a great group of free agents, and I
Mm.
think the Falcons, from their standpoint, where they are in this, I guess they don't call it a rebuild, but I still call it a rebuild.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's a rebuild.
Yeah, it's a rebuild,
It's a
and to
rebuild.
me, yeah, it continues to go through the draft. You got to use that pick that they got coming up to me for a defensive player. There are a lot of good defensive
Mhm.
players in this draft, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's most important when you're talking about developing a dog there's got to be a guy that, to me, is the verbal, vocal, aggressive leader.
Yeah.
You gotta. I know everybody wants to kind of, hey, I do it by example, but everybody on the team can't be that way.
Right.
There's got to be, to me, someone that comes when they lose at the press conference, they're a little edgy.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Cam Jordan, or as we've been seeing on the Bullies of Baltimore, Ray Lewis, and a
my
plethora
gosh.
of guys.
Everybody was a bully.
Everybody was a bully.
Yes.
Everybody was a bully. And when I played with the Falcons, we had a gang of guys that would verbally, step out like that. Whereas Jesse Tuggle wasn't the person that was going to lash out on guys. But then you had a person like myself. Then you had people on that, on like Ray Buchanan. You had people like a Jamal Anderson.
Yeah.
That were verbally would, hey, challenge you and challenge themselves. And then you got to have someone do the dirty work. So part of what you see on our team, and from my standpoint, and a lot of people truly don't know what I was. They don't on the team. But you got to have someone that's willing to absolutely mix it up with the other team, do the things, sometimes you take a shot here or there, but also have an enforcer type. And we don't have that right now. And I just think that you got to draft that. You can't just make that.
Yeah.
But also, I think it starts with, again, the culture of the defense. You got a defensive coach that say, hey, man, we bout it. Let's go take your shots. Try to keep it clean. But if you're close, take your shot. But to me, the Falcons are going through the draft. And I think that's where it's going to have to be. I don't see a free agent out there that you're going to bring in here. And also, I just, unless the money that they pay someone, guys, is going to be astronomical, I don't see a top-end free agent coming here, in my opinion, because of the fact guys want to get to the Super Bowl and want to play at a high level.
Yeah. And I have to co-sign on all of those things that you said, because we've been saying the same thing. We got a hashtag on this show, like all defense matters in the draft. Draft defense. That's all we say every day without fail. Chuck, that's number one. And number two, you are absolutely right in that. Yes, the Falcons do have the number two, essentially in the league, amount of cap space to work with, but you still have to be smart about how you use that cap space. And to your point, to get yourself a pass rusher, edge rusher, the draft might be your better way to go.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
And Chuck, and I'll co-sign on that as well, because when you think about like going into games every week in and week out with these teams, it's like soon as that opposing team punch them in the mouth, they never seem to have an answer. And he's like, okay, this is how it's gonna go for the rest of the day. And it can't be like that on every Sunday, especially when you're talking about establishing some type of culture. So hopefully Ryan Nielsen can be that guy. Chuck, I got one more for you, man.
Okay.
Now everybody, I know a lot of people have been clamoring for you to kind of get with a specific team, to be a defensive line coach and get into that world in the NFL because you're so good at what you do. My question to you is, what made you go into the clientele building of working with guys, from whether it be guys going into the NFL, guys going into, and now going from high school and going to that college level?
Well, it started for me in around 1999 when I was a Falcon. In the off seasons, I would train because I was from this area. I'm from Athens, so I always I know people in Commerce. I know people in College Park. I knew I knew people in Douglasville. I had friends, you know what I mean. So I had a lot of people that I would always, in the off seasons, I would work on pass rush, and I would train young guys and even college kids. So one time I was watching Inside the NFL. It was around 2000. I was watching Inside the NFL. I think it was Bryant Gumbel. It was on like HBO. I think it was like HBO. So, and I remember seeing there was because I was already doing it, and I was in Carolina. My career was coming to an end now. So I'm sitting on the couch. I'm on injured reserve. I had just had a knee surgery. So me and my wife are watching. And then I hear on there, Bryant Gumbel says, there's a new trend happening. There's a quarterback coach that's kind of changing the game a little bit. His name is Steve Clarkston, and NFL players are flocking to him, quarterbacks, to work on his skills. So I was like, me and my wife was there, and the first thing she said was like, babe, you already doing that. You've been doing that. And then right then I said to her,
it's always the wife, Chuck. It's always the wife.
Yes. And shout out to you for listening, Chuck.
And at that time, for my whole life, I've always kind of been a pass rush aficionado. Even when I was in the 7th, 8th grade, it wasn't normal back then to be talking about LT and Reggie, because at the time they were big names, but the NFL didn't focus a lot on pass rushers. So my wife said that. I said to her, well, if the number one player in the game or quarterbacks, when the number two has to be the pass rusher, because we're the only person that can truly affect the game by getting sacks.
Mhm.
So I subsequently get released by Carolina. I retire and I come back and I go full blast. I start my company. The first company I had was Defensive Line University. And that was the first one. So I was really the second skill trainer for pay, in the business. And I was the first guy to do what I do. And now it's pretty cool to see you got linebacker, you D-line, you got, you got
Yeah, Willie
DB
Anderson,
drill.
Willie work with the
You got
OLs.
Willie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Yep.
Willie. You got, the route king. You got pass rush sensei. You know what I mean? You got
Oh
trench
yeah.
war, so then I went into business and I just started training and developing a system that has brought me now here to 2023, a system that I use, vision, get off hands and hips, my 4 vital keys to developing a pass rusher. And that's how Jarvis has started. And it was something that I was always passionate about. And I wanted to one day make it a career, but I also wanted the craft to be grow where it could become a career and pay, carry, people can have a living and make a living off of it. And
Indeed.
now,
Yeah.
it's a big time business and, people, lots of trainers are out there having a lot of success.
Yeah. And one thing I want to give you kudos on to just add to that, I'm excited because hopefully my nephew will get here this summer and be working with you, is the impact that you've had from a mentoring perspective in the way that you handle these young men. A lot of them we've spoken with and they've said such positive things, not just about how you've impacted them on the field, but also just watching your movements and your impact of them off the field. Now, you just said 2 words. So that means Jarvis and I can't let you go until you answer this question about trench wars, because we have heard a lot about Jalen Hurts and we have heard a lot about Patrick Mahomes and the impact that they're going to have on the game. But let's just be real. It's going to be about who wins the war in the trenches. So who you got come Sunday and why?
I like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Kansas City, I think they're hot right now, but I think the Eagles have the better D-line.
Yes.
But I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is the great equalizer. I think him and Travis Kelce are phenomenal. But this is a tough one. But I've been running with Kansas City all year. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles won. But I really believe Chris Jones and Frank Clark and that defense and Patrick Mahomes are going to get it done. But it's going to be a close game. It really is.
Yeah. Saw a graphic today that was crazy, Chuck. 16-3 both teams, 546 points
crazy.
both teams. I mean, literally. Pro Bowler 6, both teams. This has been arguably one of the most evenly matched ones. So appreciate your time. Appreciate you giving us that inside detail. And listen, anytime you want to hear some of this kind of commentary, of course, you got to stop by ATL Day Ones because we bring you guys like Chuck Smith. But you can also stop by ATL Day Ones and then Locked On Sports Today, because they're going to give you their instant reaction. They're going to give you every day. They might change the line on who they believe it is. Chiefs are going to win one day. Eagles are going to win the next. So don't forget, you got to always stop here and check us out on YouTube or wherever you download your podcast. But you know where to go after that. It is Locked On Sports Today. Jarvis and I are about to head to For the Culture and have some reaction to all the cray-cray that's going on in the world. They have their version of it as well. It's called Take of the Day. So don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today, because I wouldn't be surprised if one of these good days you see Dr. Rush right there.
Locked On Sports Atlanta family, listen up. We are well on our way to 6,000 subscribers. If you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, what the hell are you waiting on? Be one in the number. Choose ye today. Like, nobody likes lukewarm. Either you're hot or you're cold, baby. Don't play around with it. Go and jump in this water full freight and hit that subscribe button. When you go to our YouTube channel, it's Locked On Sports Atlanta. We'll pop right up, hit that bell as soon as you hit that subscribe button as well. Now, T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's how we get down on this show. Today is no different. How about this, T? So, people are running out of ideas on shows and stuff, and I think they don't want to admit it. And when I came across this, I saw this trailer because the wife had brought it up to me and told me about it. I was like, what? Huh? So I went and watched the trailer, and I think the guy Jack Harlow, and then the brother who's supposed to be Wesley Snipes. Notice I said who's supposed to be Wesley Snipes is the guy who played 50's son on Power. So, acting skills may or may not be up to par of where they need to be to play this role. But T, here we are. White Man Can't Jump is going down on Hulu. First question: are you watching?
Man, I just canceled Hulu earlier today. Is that a good enough answer? And that is the truth, good people.
Well,
I got the receipts for it and everything.
Wow, man! Like, oh man, I don't even know. I don't even know like
Where to start?
yeah, I don't even know where to start. Like, because that was the chemistry, the legendarianism of
Yes.
that tandem
Yes.
of Woody
Yes.
Harrelson,
Yes.
Wesley Snipes. That
Rosie
you
Perez was in
can't.
it too, right?
Rosie Perez was
Yeah.
amazing,
Like,
absolutely
yeah.
amazing.
Just,
Like
yeah.
you can't remake this stuff,
No.
folks. Stop it.
It,
Like try stuff, try new
just
stuff. Don't
right.
try this.
Or do what Will Smith did. It's such an excellent job that he
Yes,
did on
yes,
reimagining Bel Air. Like
yes,
I
it
can
was.
get with that, but you've got to be careful with those remakes. And I'm gonna take it back because I love to like go to was it TV Land and other like networks that show like all the old school
Mhm.
sitcoms, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
So Night Court is one of those. And that's just the most recent example to where people are like, if you're going to do Night Court and Marsha Warfield is still alive, you might
Yes.
want to go get her because
Please.
this without Marsha Warfield is a hot mess. And then it goes on and on. Like now I've seen snippets of commercials and trailers for this new Magnum PI. That's another iconic show.
Come on,
And I'm
man.
like, it's weird because Tom Selleck is still alive. He's one of my and my grandmother's favorite shows, Blue Bloods. And I'm thinking, are you guys gonna have like guest
Like,
appearances
come
with
on, man.
Tom
Like,
Selleck? Or are we gonna see? So to me, Jarvis, that's what you would do. You would have
yeah.
to do something like bring in Wesley Snipes, because although Shaft wasn't the greatest remake of a movie, it was a little bit more legitimized by having the original Shaft join
Yeah.
the current Shaft as his uncle, I think, right? I think Richard
Yeah,
Roundtree
exactly.
played
It's
Samuel L.
easy,
Jackson's
right? It's an
uncle.
easy
Yeah.
write-in. Yeah.
So it
Mhm.
did exactly. So it gave it some authenticity. I'm just wondering, can anybody give this movie authenticity? The only way is if we get some, press leakings or whatever that say to us, yeah, Wesley and or Woody and or Rosie will be making a cameo. Otherwise,
Something.
I'm just gonna keep my Hulu canceled like I did this morning.
Yeah, you got to have somebody to bow. See you paying. I feel you paying homage to it. Like you got to pay homage to it the right way, and that's
Indeed.
by having one or all of those people making some type of appearance, even if it's just a random appearance for comedic purposes. Yeah, somebody has to come up in there. But T, how about this? I got to ask you this now. Now you told me it's a certain type of day being
Yes.
celebrated or something like that. What's going on with that?
So today is National Fettuccine Alfredo Day. And if you guys don't already know, my favorite cuisine is that of Italian. So
Okay.
I am super duper excited about that because my family came here last year and surprised me for my birthday. And
Nice.
unbeknownst to me, they'd asked several of my friends here, like, what's Tanitra's favorite spot? And unequivocally, Scalini's, which is, the now defunct Italian restaurant in Smyrna. So, Jarvis, that was my default button. Like anytime I wanted
Wow.
Italian, I don't do chains, miss me with
Yeah.
that. But
Okay.
I do Italian. So once Scalini's closed, I was like, well, what am I going to do with myself? So I found out about a couple of other spots like Ippolito's and La Grata, but La
All right. I heard
Grata
about
in
LaGuardia. Yeah.
particular, I heard it was like so Tenitra because it is in the basement of some old building and you've got to go down a grimy elevator shaft all to
Yes.
get to this. And all you have to do
Yes.
is tell them what you want. There's no menu, if you will, and they'll just go hook
Whoa.
it up. Yeah, no real
Oh
menu. You
wow.
just say, you tell
Let's
them what you
go.
want. And yeah. So if you pass through and you tell them, hey, I want fettuccine Alfredo. And if you're like me, Jarvis, you like chicken, you like broccoli, you like peas in yours, just
Let's
give it a
go.
little green flavor. It so reminded me of my days in Jersey. That's why I knew you would laugh because I was like, well, I did live in mob country and there were certain Italian
Mhm.
restaurants I would have to call first and say, is this a good night to come? Some nights they say yes. Some nights they say, Miss Batiste, not tonight. I knew
Yes.
exactly what that meant. So that makes me
Mm.
feel like when I get to La Grata, it's going to be like, I don't know. It's just giving me my Jersey feel, man. But I'm so
Nostalgia feeling.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Instead of
I'm
coming up
excited.
with a fake show about anyway. All right. So yeah, I love Alfredo. Like that is probably one of my favorite sauces
Yeah.
when it comes to noodles and all that good stuff and all those carbs coming into my body. It has to be Alfredo sauce. Have to go with that bad boy. Now, people, you guys have been rocking with us and making ATL Day Ones your first listen today. How about you make your second listen Locked On Sports today? Go there. They got all the national news. They talking about the Super Bowl and everything, all the matchups, all the brothers going against each other on the podcast and on the field. So yeah, go check out Locked On Sports today. You can find it wherever you download this podcast. Now, guys, I got to do this each and every day. If you don't do anything else, make sure you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.